Good evening. It's Midwinter's Eve, the southern solstice. So, I have a question, or not a question, a proposition. If ethical veganism be a philosophy, let us critique it. An English court affirmed that ethical veganism is a philosophy. And this is fitting because the Vegan Society is an English institution founded in 1944 and is a registered charity. So, what is ethical veganism? Okay, this foundation is the assumption that by no longer using any animal product, the oppression and suffering of animals would cease and the world would automatically become a better place. This is a noble ideal, very noble ideal. It's up there with all those other noble ideals, because it's based on how can we prevent or stop suffering, suffering. It's bad. Take it away. We don't want it anymore. However, it is a hypothesis, a baseless hypothesis, relying on the emotional impulse rather than any provable results. Indeed, it seems to have had quite the opposite effect. Therefore, I would refer to it as dogmatic veganism, for its claim to be ethical based on dogma and magical thinking rather than any well thought through philosophical system. Let us take the claim that it is a healthy diet. It isn't, because one must take supplements. Despite the claim in 72 Reasons to be Vegan, number 17, iron is necessary, but it is the plants that get it right. Like heme iron doesn't occur in plants, so that's the one that the body uses. That's another one. Number 35, it's good for growing kids, which is why children have been taken away from vegan parents for the sake of their health. Bad parents. Oh, but I was only trying to do the right thing. Yeah. Number 51, type 2 diabetes is not about carbohydrates, it's about fat. So, diabetes, which is too much blood glucose, which you get from eating carbohydrates, sugar, like starches, sugars, alcohol. That's where you get your blood glucose from, not from fats. Goodness. Number 51. and there are no essential carbohydrates. Number 46, there is no need for supplements. This is only true if one is eating animal products. There's a long list of supplements that vegans must take if they wish to remain healthy, because they have a storage of vitamin B6, for instance. But once it starts to fizzle out because it's been used up and it's not being replaced, they become sick, like very sick. So this is the sort of stuff that so-called ethical vegans put into print. What can we say? I mean, this is actually books authored by minimum 2 people and then printed and sent around the world. I mean, the copy I'm quoting from was in the bookshop here in Romania, in English. And other things get translated into Romanian because they're so in demand. Yeah, so ethical, ethical is when you return good with good and ill for ill, because that's just. I mean, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay, well, if somebody's doing unto others as he would have them do unto him, he can't complain if he gets the same thing back, can he? That's ethical. That's justice. Not some airy-fairy metaphysical words about suffering. I mean, Aristotle said, to perceive is to suffer. And Nietzsche said, what does not kill me makes me stronger. And he, I assure you, knew what suffering was. So, the Vegan Society was founded in 1944 by several people, mainly, the main amongst them was Donald Watson, a vegetarian and a pacifist, and later taken over by Leslie Cross, a vegetarian and an animal rights activist. And I do mean taken over. He wrote Watson out of the history of the society, but Watson outlived him by some 30 years. That's karma for you. And Cross in the 50s set up a soy milk factory in the UK. So when you get soy milk or rice milk or oat milk or he's one of the people behind it. So I always prefer kaimak to soy mac. Mac in any form. Kaimak, if you don't know, is cream. So anyway, looking at that, we can see the ethical implications of Mr. Cross's activities. Then we might say that PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, is the militant wing of veganism. Well, animal rights activists, but then again, the two are sort of intertwined. It's a very different organisation with common roots in the United Kingdom. Now, in an interview, which you can find on YouTube somewhere, Watson did not disapprove of animal rights activists that involved violence. Being a good pacifist, he remained neutral, didn't he? Well, yes, and as Orwell said, neutrality and pacifism give the nod to fascism. Very ethical, I don't think. Right. Quote from Yeats: "The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." Lines 7 and 8 from The Second Coming. Okay, I think that sort of sums up those guys there. Mr. Watson and his vegans, and PETA, one lacking all conviction while the other's full of passionate intensity. There's a lot of people like that around these days. So swept up under the banner of ethical veganism, the crowd rules for a short space, only to fall into disarray with infighting and money and stuff. And all the vicious turns and betrayals befitting of any ancient court. As it might, worship the gods and do what you want. I think that was the Roman version. Pay lip service to the cause and feather your nest. This is their ethics. Being an animal rights activist does not make one a good moral person. Words are cheap. As for the assertion that plants provide for all of our needs, that's entirely false. It is wishful thinking, a desperate hope. It's turning aside from fact. It is the espousal of a morbid metaphysical dystopia. If all the fruits and roots and grains were to be no longer available, the ruminants would continue to eat grasses and foliage, and the fish would continue to spawn, and we would continue to eat them, as we have done as genus Homo for around about 4 million years. You know, hunt game, gather firewood. That's the bulk of human history there. You know, 90 something or other +% of human history. Hunt game and gather firewood. make yourself a little shelter while you're at it. Okay. The toil of tilling would have become a thing of the past, and all of it and all of its environmental harm with it, including the degradation of soils. This is leaching of nutrition from the biome. Thence the crops, thence from the crops, thence from the people who have to eat them. This leads to metabolic illnesses, whether physical or mental, like depression, for example. Without the reciprocity of animals and plants on the soil, clever solutions such as artificial fertilizers and various biocides are introduced, leading to further degradation of the ambient medium. No one wins. One thing leads to another until there seems to be no way out until a thing is broken and abandoned. Such is history. There are those who become so obsessed with their own bad habits and evil inclinations that they must stamp them out in everyone, everywhere, even if theirs is the sole manifestation. This is the insanity of projection. The racist becomes the anti-racist, the rapist becomes the Puritan, and the nihilist becomes the mass murderer. After all, what have we got to live for? On the other hand, a naive optimist refuses to recognize that good and evil emerge from ourselves. Thus we hear, why can't we all get along together? And if we put an end to suffering, the world will be a better place. If by putting on a nice face and pleasant demeanor, everything that is necessary, that is everything that's necessary. Why then are people taken in by confidence tricksters and worse? Pay no heed to such folly, be wary. It's always like, oh, we have the easy answer. There are no easy answers except stop making things so complicated. If a person becomes dissatisfied with life, he feels either inadequate, incompetent, or defective. Or he strives to find some external cause for his lack, whether society in general or some imagined foe. Hence, he seeks out allies and perhaps a saviour. In this regard, cults, whether political or metaphysical, not spiritual, they're metaphysical, find their adherents and victim otherlings. And you don't have to look too far to see that in action. All of this comes from malnutrition. All propositions seem plausible to the when the lights are off. Last page. So, despite the lofty ideals, it fails on several points. Seven. It does not alleviate suffering, except in the eyes of its proponents. It does not improve the lot of mankind because it is incomplete to the requirements of the genus. That's us. It depends entirely upon agriculture, which has more problems than solutions. The proponents have come up with diverse so-called proofs of its legitimacy, and many of these were risible, if not outright deceptive and dangerous to human and animal health. And there's one fellow on the internet by the name of Nick Heber who thinks that animals are problematic and that they should be all wiped out because they prey upon one another, and that's more suffering, and we don't want more suffering. And really get a life, Nick. You deserve your own little chapter in 72 Reasons to be Vegan with that one, because most of them are in the same vein, like wacko. Okay, so remember, again, there are no essential carbohydrates. Protein and fat are what we need. One does not get scurvy from not eating carbohydrates. I mean, here's me. Yeah, what's it? Yes. Another 2 days, that's 84 weeks with no carbohydrates. No sign of scurvy, no sign of constipation. Don't need fiber, it's just cellulose, I mean, little ball of cellulose. What's that? Yes. Sawdust. It'll go through you like a teaspoon of sawdust if you don't choke on it first. Okay, that's the end. So we can take a sanity break, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And remember, just because somebody jumped up and went, oh, row, 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 oh, row, row, oh, row, row this and oh, row, row that, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. Goodbye for now.